we have Darryl James joining us from Texas Tech University. He is the Vice Provost for Institutional Effectiveness. He's going to talk to us this morning or afternoon, depending where you are, about Texas Tech's journey to becoming a Research One institution. Please lend a warm virtual welcome to Darryl James.
Thank you, Kim, for the introduction. So my talk is going to be talking about Texas Tech's journey to R1, really focused over the past 10 years. And we're going to start this kind of let me give you an overview of, let's see, my slide clicker. Oh, it did work. Thank you. All right. Well, technical difficulties. So as an overview, first, because we have a lot of international partners, and going to present kind of what is Texas Tech, where Texas Tech. We're going to look at our evolution as we've moved to Carnegie R1. I'll talk a little bit about what is Carnegie R1 for those who are outside the United States. And then really the impetus that really drove us significantly was something that was about 10 years ago that the state of Texas initiated. We'll talk about that and look at strategic priorities and how those strategic priorities have allowed us to evolve to where we currently are. I'll mix that with a lot of the data-driven or data-informed. I don't really like saying data-driven as much, but data-informed environment. Kind of finish that up with some COVID activities. Of course, that's affecting us all, and we have some surprises that have actually occurred, and then follow up with some questions. And as Buzz Lightyear there has, instead of infinity and beyond, we're going to go to R1 and beyond. So just a little bit about, for Carnegie classification, just for our international viewers, in the United States, the Carnegie Foundation classifies research universities, doctoral universities. If you basic criteria, they'll classify you into different levels, and that's based on the research expenditures per faculty, and then the number of doctoral degrees conferred. And they're into the classifications are very high research universities, known as R1. You'll see there are 131, 90 are public, and in the two classification is one an R1, and there's two and the R3 university. So when we're talking about R1, it's our transformation to becoming classified as a R1. So Texas Tech University, in 1923, enrolled. It was Texas Technological College was the original name of it. In 1969, it was changed to Texas Tech University. So we're one of 15 R1 universities that's also a Hispanic serving institution. And so to become a Hispanic serving institution, there's various criteria, but one of the basic is that you must have 25% of your student body to be of Hispanic ethnicity. So we're very proud of that fact. We are actually about 22% of our body right now is of Hispanic ethnicity. You'll see that we have 8 regional sites across Texas. You'll see the kind of the lumping of those regional sites in just a second. You'll kind of I'll show you why they're located where they are. They're located in really the major metropolitan areas or regions in the state of Texas. We have one international site that was that we formed and started 2 years ago, and that's in Costa Rica. In Costa Rica, we actually offer 6 different degree programs. And then in next August, we are going to launch the first public veterinary medical school to open in decades. So a lot of exciting things happening in okay. Hey, this is so now you can see a map of kind of where Texas Tech is. We're in West Texas. You'll see that we're roughly 350 miles or 550 so kilometers from a lot of the major metropolitan areas. So from El Paso, which is approximately 1 million people, from Dallas-Fort Worth area, from Austin, we're over 550 miles to Houston. So if you think back to the previous slide, we have these are regional sites. They were located where there's millions of people. The state of Texas has about 30 million residents. We are on the high plains here. There's about 1,000 meters above sea level. And so most people wouldn't realize that Texas goes from the seacoast up to 1,000 meters up here in Lubbock. Our population in Lubbock is about 250,000, about 300,000 if you include the surrounding areas. Our major industry is agriculture. It dominates the world. It dominates, Lubbock. And we also medical and higher education. But 1/4 of all the U.S. cotton is grown within 100 miles of Lubbock. So Lubbock is a significant agricultural town. And that has a big influence on not only when the creation of Texas Tech, but really the way in which this region and the way Texas Tech comes together from that agrarian viewpoint. And also, perhaps both best known, depending on where you're from, of the birthplace of Buddy Holly, as Mac Davis. We have a lot of entertainers, and we have a very vibrant arts community here. And if you're a fan of Phantom of the Opera, David Gashin has performed the lead of Phantom of the Opera over 1,300 times in Europe and in the U.S. So that's a big name. All right, this is just kind of a flyover of everything that you can see Texas Tech. One thing, we're over 40,000 students in the fall. We have a Spanish style architecture, which is consistent pretty much throughout campus. We have 12 colleges that offer 250 degrees, over 50 doctoral degrees. That's at Texas Tech. It's a place where big sky country. You get a lot of sky. We have over 270 clear days a year. So it's, if you love the weather and not a lot of humidity, it's gorgeous. And one thing you can't living in the state of Texas. You'll see we end with football. Football is a religion in the state of Texas. So it's something that is true to many Texans. So as we move on, so now really looking at, I'll give you an overview of Texas Tech University. And our first president, so Paul Whitfield Horn, the bear our banners far and wide. You'll see that in his note here, he talks about the bigness of the country, the bigness and thoughts of the people. And I'll end with, let our thoughts be big thoughts and broad thoughts, let our thinking be in worldwide terms. So even though Texas Tech started obviously as a regional university designed to satisfy the educational needs of West, to grow substantially. And really, the big initiative in my mind that happened about a little over a decade ago. So in 2009, the Texas legislature started something called the National Research University Initiative. And so it really was an initiative to try and somewhat copy although California maybe has two systems, Texas has 7. But really, the idea is to be able to make national research universities. And you'll see there are 7 institutions that were eligible for try to come up with some funds, this additional funding specific to research. And so the National Research Initiative, which is like in 2009, was initiated and passed by the legislature, really was something that changed the trajectory of Texas Tech. And so there's some requirements for them to become the requirements to become there. You see there's 7 requirements, and you had to satisfy 5 of the 7 requirements. And some of the 5 of them are quantitative. You can look to see the qualified research expenditures of $45 million. So the state wanted you to have certain types of research expenditures. Some of them were excluded, some were included in this. Okay, the $400 million in an endowment, 200 doctorates per year. We have this high achieving freshman class. That's kind of vague. At that point in time, the SAT scores and class rank are important, but no particulars. We have the Phi Beta Kappa chapter, or the Association of Research Libraries, that is a requirement. This high quality faculty, again, not high quality faculty was not defined, although members of the national academies is certainly one measure. And then excellent graduate education. So I guess if you look at it, the excellent graduate education really couples back up into the 200 doctorates per year. The graduate education excellence also can be looked in terms of the performance of publications and citations of that work. And of course, we can roll that into the SciVal, which or pure these type things. Okay, so next, please. So in 2010, we have a new strategic plan. And the strategic plan, what you'll see is there's five strategic priorities. And if you look at the five priorities, those five priorities couple strongly to the requirements for the National Research Initiative. And so if we go to the next slide, then yes, so the next slide is a poll question to ask you with respect to your university. Do you have your strategic plan at your university? Is it documented with strategic initiatives that's integrated and regularly reviewed? Document that guides strategic initiatives but not well integrated or regularly reviewed? Is it documented that it's created when high-level administrators change, or do you see it as a paperweight? So I'm going to talk about those five strategic initiatives that we had at Texas Tech, and talk about what are the different pieces that really informed our movement to R1. Enrollment and the enrollment strategy. So we developed and designed what we call Red Raider Roadshow. So we actually had the president, many deans that would go to the major metropolitan areas. It would be an entire Sunday afternoon. We would do this for about 6 or 8 weeks in the fall semester to try and bring our message of Texas Tech to those students. And we implemented a student success initiative that was managed out of the provost office. So rather than have the student success initiatives in respective colleges, we tried to have an overall plan for that initiative. And one of the things that we did is we partnered with EAB. So at that point in time, it was the Education Advisory Board. There's a Student Success Collaborative. And so that was a point where we would be able to have advisor meetings, advisor scheduling, student scheduling. The notes that were made by advisors could be shared by all advisors. It was a very purposeful and reach out to the individual students to make sure that we were providing the services that they need to be successful. See, we developed international partnerships to increase our recruiting for international efforts. Developed a dissertation completion fellowship. So what we did is we see that many students were getting close to finishing and just needed a little help, whether that was financially, oftentimes financially, to be able to get them to create and finish their doctoral work. So just an overview of what has happened with those initiatives to increase our student enrollment. You can see that we went from a little over 31,000 in 2010, and then this past fall we're at over 40,000. That was a purposeful intent to try and increase a student. While we're doing that, we've also increased our quality and increased our retention rates, which you see in a little bit. I will point one thing to you, that in 2020, if you look at our enrollment in 2019 and then our enrollment in 2020, we were at 4.2% in this last year. So in this pandemic year, this is something that none of us could foresee. Across the nation, most people are down a couple percent, but somehow we went up over 4%, something that we're still trying to look at. So next slide, please. Our international enrollment, so you can see a large trend of increasing international enrollment until about 2017. And then with the change in leadership in 2017, now we've seen this decrease. And the change in leadership, I'm not talking about at Texas Tech University, I'm talking about in the United States. So we have had increasing enrollment, particularly of undergraduates over the past, well, from 2010 to 2017, and now we're experiencing a decrease, and we expect that decrease to continue, unfortunately, although we're still working hard with our international partners to increase that and change that. Next slide, please. Now here's something that we're very proud of, is that although we're increasing our graduate, we're increasing our undergraduate numbers, you'll see that our retention rates have increased. So I got the blue line that's there to know, and that's 2014 when we started this centralized student success initiative with EAB, where we were reaching out to students and trying to be much more proactive in our reach out to students. And so that EAB initiative we did for 4 years. This past year we just have changed from EAB to Hops and Starfish, and we're excited about that. Hops and Starfish offers us more abilities and more custom ability to reach out to students in their mobile phones, which of course phones, that's what the students live in. So if you go back and look at then the graduation rates, these are 6-year graduation rates, and so in 2008 we were at 59%. In fact, for about 5 years we're hovering about 59 to 60%, and then we finally, that initiation that we had in 2014, now you'll see that we've jumped up to 64% this past year, and that's again the direct result of our purposeful collaborations and reaching out to students using the EAB platform. Next slide, please. Our degrees conferred have increased. We can move on to the next slide. Our quality and reputation. So one of the things that we purposely did is we have reached out to faculty and said, okay, if you're going to apply for prestigious awards, as defined by the national academies, then what we'll do is we'll pay you a bonus. And so that's something that's been very successful. We have recruited in clusters so that we can take our dollars and try to recruit in just a couple of different clusters. We went from 1 National Academy member in 2010. We added a 2nd National Academy member in 2012, and we now have 6 National Academy members as of 2019. So as we want to expand our research, now this is where for many years during that period of time we used academic analytics. So academic analytics plus some internal development applications that we did to be able to identify opportunities, to be able to identify if we wanted to hire faculty, what would the impact of those faculty be coming into our programs. We try to increase our student stipends. So one thing, there's an Oklahoma State survey in the United States, so we can see what is the average stipend paid by the different degree programs, and our goal is to try and at least be at that average, if not surpass the average, so that we can be very competitive, bringing in higher quality students. Next slide, please. This slide is to talk about our proposals that have been submitted have been relatively flat. So although we've tried to use academic analytics, we've tried to be proactive in identifying opportunities, the results from that weren't so great. And in fact, as of about 2 years ago, when our academic analytics license was coming up for the 2nd time, we did a big global study to see what are the other products out there. And at that point in time, it was decided to go with the Elsevier SciVal and Pure system. So we just have fully implemented that really within the last year. That system is really serving us 2 points. The Pure system is going to serve us as our external portal, external experts portal. We had previously written a custom application for that portal, and it didn't get a lot of viewing from the larger community. And so we feel like going to the experts portal, utilizing Pure, is going to substantially increase our exposure. And then with the SciVal opportunities, we'll continue to look for ways in which we can find international partners and internal partners for us to be able to respond to proposals. If you go to the next slide, you can see one more slide, please. One more slide forward, please. Yeah, our research and creative activities, these are our research expenditures. So if you look at 2010 and throw it out, because that really, if you recall, that was when there was a big stimulus that was presented due to the 2008-2009 downturn. So from 2011 forward, what you see is just kind of a steady increase in our total research expenditures. So we've been, even though our proposals have been relatively flat, we've been successful in bringing in, increasing our money, our expenditures from research and creative activities over the past decade or so. Next slide, please. Outreach and engage activities. These are a challenge, even to just have some researchers on campus to even understand what that definition is. So we struggle with trying to get that. We are a Carnegie Community Engaged campus. We have developed an instrument that we call Raters Engaged that we use every year to our faculty and staff to try and have understand the outreach and engagement that our students and faculty are doing. That's really important, because for legislatures, they like to see that the money is being spent is tied and what can it do to your local communities, the communities in the state of Texas. And then a big significant success was to allow in the tenure and promotion policy, the engaged scholarship was included in our tenure and promotion package. So that was really a significant step to identify that outreach and engaged scholarship is an important part of what universities do. Before we go to the next slide, could we look at the results of the poll, the first poll? Let's see. I cannot read what the, okay, well, that's excellent. So by far and away, the largest piece of the poll question is that 48%, the document gives strategic initiatives that are well integrated and regularly viewed. Only a few of you have those uses of paperweight. So I'll say at Texas Tech, again, we fall into the very first one from a perspective of the upper administration. Now, as we move down to strategic plans that go into the colleges, or strategic plans that go into the departments, we may sometimes move more into the unfortunate use of the paperweights. All right, so we're going to return to the presentation. Yes, thank you. So administration changes. One thing at Texas Tech, we have had quite a few upper administration changes. So in making it possible, which is the strategic plan in 2010, our president left and went to his alma mater. And at that point in time, we have an interim president in August. And then you'll see in 2013, we have a new president, and our interim president became provost. This is kind of a little bit of a musical chairs. And then in 2014, I'm sorry, so 2014, not 15, the interim provost became the new provost. But then in 2016, our president left, and we now had an interim president. And then we did a search, and then in August of 2016, we have a new president. And in fact, the new president was the same person who was interim president in 2012 and provost. And of course, we have an interim provost. And at that point in time, the new president decides we're going to have a new strategic plan. And so 2017 March, we had a new provost that was given, and we have a new strategic plan. So there's quite a bit of changes that occurred during this administration change. And it's I think a little bit, it's not necessarily intuitive that through all these administrative changes, we would have a consistent message that would be applied, and we did have a consistent message, because really because our interim president, that was in 2012, this person who's a mathematician, is really his vision that moved through often in the last 8 years. Okay, so if we can move to the next slide, please. I'm gonna skip this next one, please. So with the strategic plan of 2017, the priorities went from 5 to 3, and you can imagine they're centered around teaching, research, and service. But the aspirational goals was become a top 50 university, and we wanted to strengthen our position as an R1 university. Next slide, please. We did these things with the use of different types of informed data. We want to be elite but not exclusive. We use data. Our president is again a mathematician. He loves to understand the data from a very deep perspective. I see my time's running out, so I just want to, can we go to the next slide? This is what, okay. On the data informed environments. So before 2013, we had spreadsheets. We had lots of macros that you would write. I would write macros with different colors that would pop up to try and inform, hey, you really need to look at this. From really the 2014 forward, we have moved this university from looking at developing our own application to reaching out to target vendors, reaching out to vendors who have those applications get to benefit from not only one person's perspective, but because they work with many different universities, we get to benefit from the combined knowledge of many universities. So from 14 on, we've really transitioned to a dashboard and target applications for all of our executive level and dean level. In 2020, my director for institutional research retired, and it's provided us a great opportunity. So now we're transforming our institutional research from, excuse me, something that largely was just a report generator. Here are all the different reports. We're going to submit these things for the federal and state requirements. So now that we're able to start focusing on data analytics. And so this is a great opportunity for us to even increase the information that we get to share. Next slide, please. We need to have champions. As you move towards a data-informed environment, everyone knows that you have to have a champion. If it's an executive level champion, it wins. We still have people who doubt our data, who want to say that they know better than the data. And so from that, we're very polite, and we continue to try and work with them and be a service-oriented so that they trust the data. It's very important. I think the data has got to be transformed to knowledge and the wisdom is what you actually act on. Those are the actions that people use. So next slide, please. Lastly, on the COVID pandemic, the COVID, what it exposed to us is that the departments and things that were somewhat weak, we found out that their leadership was exposed even further. So that if we had units that we knew weren't so great, COVID exposed them to, gave us really more of a affirmation that that's so. So now we really need to work on the leadership in those departments to try and increase their effectiveness. I think it permanently altered higher education. I don't think any student is going to come back now who's had kind of an on-demand ability to look and view lectures are going to go back and say, no, you know what, I don't need that anymore. I think permanently that's going to have changed the way in which we do things, and I think data-informed environment is more important than ever. And the last slide, the short-term goals at Texas Tech, equity has been something that's been exposed. We have, in the state of Texas, 1/3 of the state of Texas does not have high-speed internet. We realize that we have students who have family, they're having to become the caregivers. Security, food security, housing security. Those students who came to campus actually came and their lives were better here than they were from which they left. So those are significant issues that we've been facing. And research and creative activities, of course, anyone who's having to do things in person or experiments were greatly impacted by the COVID shutdown that we've had for 6 months. Long-term goals right now remain unchanged, although they certainly will change. I apologize for the clunkiness of this, and thank you.
Thank you, Provost James. Such a dynamic research journey to becoming a R1 school, and I think a lot of institutions strive to make that journey. So I appreciate you sharing all the details. As we're running out of time, we have a number of questions that have come in regarding Texas Tech's journey, but we will have time for one of them. So does the faculty or departmental data that you just mentioned from Pure get into senior management dashboards that you mentioned, either presently, and if not presently, or plans to do so in the future?
Yeah, so the Pure data or the SciVal data that we extract absolutely goes into parts of the dashboards that the upper administration sees. All the faculty have access to Pure, and in fact, we integrate Digital Measures, which is our faculty platform for performance, and so we've integrated that into Pure to better reflect the non-STEM fields. We know there's a challenge for the humanities and the arts that doesn't have the quality and depth that you get out of Scopus, which feeds it. But we have Digital Measures, which is an annually our faculty report their performance in digital measures. So we extract their self-reported data and actually populate that also into Pure to try and give a broader perspective of what's happening on the campus. And absolutely, the upper administration sees that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's helpful to hear about the integrations, and some of the other questions were about social sciences. I think that's really helpful detail. So, but thank you again.